Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really zeroing in on C1 level speaking,
Hmm.
especially, in tricky situations like debates, presentations, or those intense academic chats.
Right.
If you've ever had that feeling where you know the answer, but getting it out in that academic way is tough.
Yeah, happens to a lot of people.
Or maybe you feel a bit lost trying to jump into group discussions. Well, this deep dive is definitely for you.
We're aiming to equip you with some solid strategies.
Exactly. Pulled from our sources, focusing on things like hedging, structuring those impromptu answers, even disagreeing without, starting a fight.
All about sounding more sophisticated, more structured, getting you towards that C1 level.
It's really about moving beyond just getting the message across, isn't it? It's about engaging with ideas more deeply.
Precisely. It's not just piling on vocabulary. It's a fundamental shift, really, in how you think and express yourself with precision and maybe some diplomacy, too.
Okay, let's unpack that shift. What's the real difference between, say, B2 and C1 speaking? Our sources give a pretty neat example.
They do.
At B2, someone might just say, I think climate change is bad. We should use renewables. Simple, direct. We get it.
Sure, clear enough.
But how does that same idea sound at C1?
Well, at C1, it transforms into something more like, while the urgency of climate action is undeniable, the transition to renewables necessitates a careful consideration of existing economic dependencies. And they might even add a point underscored in recent IPCC findings.
Ah, okay. That's quite different.
It signals a more nuanced understanding straight away, acknowledges the issue's importance, but as complexity, maybe even cites something.
It feels less like just a personal opinion and more considered.
Exactly. Considered perspective.
And there seem to be some common threads in C1 speaking. One thing that jumps out is qualifying opinions, not being so black and white.
Yes, definitely. Using words like may or phrases like this could stem from, it's not about being wishy-washy. It actually shows you understand that complex issues aren't simple. It signals intellectual maturity, invites better discussion because you're acknowledging uncertainty.
Makes sense. Shows you see different angles. And then there's lexical precision, using detrimental effects instead of just like bad things.
Absolutely. Detrimental carries more specific weight, doesn't it? Suggests real harm, negative consequences.
So it's not just about sounding smarter.
No, not at all. It's about accuracy, communicating your point more effectively, which makes your argument stronger.
Okay. And the last thing our sources highlight is discourse markers.
Mm.
Conversely, to extrapolate further, little signposts.
They really are signposts,
Mm.
connectors between your ideas. Instead of jumping, you're guiding the listener.
Right.
Furthermore, adds, however, contrasts. They help the listener follow your thinking, especially with complex stuff.
Okay, let's make this practical for you listening. Quick exercise. Think about this. Should universities be free? Take, say, 30 seconds. Just mentally form an answer. Notice if you naturally hedge, if you use synonyms, if any ums or uhs sneak in.
It's a good way to check in on your own speaking habits. Self-awareness.
Yeah, gives you a baseline. Okay, moving on. How do we actually structure answers to sound more advanced? Our sources suggest a neat four-part framework.
Yeah, this is super useful. Gives you clarity, helps you sound well considered, even under pressure like exams or discussions.
So step one, acknowledge complexity right up front. Show you get that it's not simple.
Phrases like, this issue is multifaceted, or that's a complex question. Set the right tone immediately.
Tells the listener you're not just giving a quick, easy answer.
Exactly. No knee-jerk reactions.
Step two is your main point, your thesis, but qualified. So you state your view, but nod to the other side, like, while X is compelling, we also need to consider Y.
That's key for C1. Holding multiple perspectives. You're not just pushing your view. You see the bigger picture.
Then step three, evidence or an example. This is crucial, right? Grounding your claims.
Absolutely. Moves it beyond just opinion. Saying something like, for instance, a recent study found, or consider the case of, adds real weight.
Gives it credibility.
Definitely.
And finally, step four, the conclusion. Bringing it together, often highlighting a trade-off or a key consideration. Maybe something like, so policymakers really have to weigh A against B.
Yeah, it loops back to the nuance you started with, shows you've thought through the implications.
Right. So let's try that free universities question again, using this structure. How would that sound?
Okay, so you might start, well, the question of whether universities should be free is certainly multifaceted. That's step one.
Acknowledging complexity. Got it.
Then the qualified thesis. While the idea of free education promoting social mobility is very compelling, the economic sustainability of that model really warrants careful thought.
Oh, okay, showing both sides.
Then, evidence. For example, you might look at reports suggesting potential challenges in maintaining quality if it's completely free, something concrete, and conclude. Thus, it seems policymakers face this difficult task of balancing access with, the practicalities of funding high-quality education.
Wow, yeah. That sounds way more sophisticated than just a yes or no.
Yeah,
Shows much deeper thinking.
exactly. More mature, more analytical.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Thinking about discussions, debates, places where people often disagree. How do we handle that smoothly, C1 style? Diplomatic language.
Yes, navigating disagreement constructively. That's a real hallmark of advanced communication. Keeps the dialogue productive, avoids things getting adversarial.
So if you actually agree with someone, but want to add your own bit, our sources have some good phrases.
Mm-hmm.
Like you raise a valid point regarding, shows you heard them, or building on that, I'd add, signals you're expanding, not just repeating.
Those are great. They show you're listening actively and valuing their input, even as you add your own perspective. Fosters collaboration.
And the flip side, when you genuinely see it differently, how do you disagree politely but clearly?
There are good ways. I respectfully diverge on X because is clear but polite.
Okay.
Or maybe an alternative interpretation might be offers another view without a direct clash.
Let's try a quick role play. Say we're debating AI replacing teachers. I'll argue, with AI advancing so fast, it seems inevitable it'll replace teachers. It's efficient, personalizes learning. How would you disagree diplomatically?
Okay. I might say you raise a valid point about AI's potential for personalization. That's definitely interesting. However, I respectfully diverge on the idea of complete replacement.
Okay.
Because, well, the teacher's role is so multifaceted, isn't it? It goes beyond just information delivery. There's the human connection, fostering critical thinking, understanding emotional needs, things that, for now at least, seem uniquely human.
I see. So you acknowledged my point first,
Okay.
and stated your difference clearly, with reasons. Very smooth.
It just softens the disagreement, right?
Yeah.
And opens up a more nuanced discussion about what AI can do and what it maybe can't.
Right. Now, even when aiming for C1, people can fall into traps. What common pitfalls should we watch out for?
Well, one big one is relying too much on simple vocabulary. Always saying very, for instance, instead of maybe exceedingly, remarkably, significantly. Using more nuanced words elevates the expression.
So fine-tuning the toolkit.
Exactly. Another thing is stating opinions like they're facts. Big no-no at C1.
How do you avoid that?
Frame them as opinions instead of, this is wrong, try. It could be argued this approach has limitations, or from my perspective, it shows intellectual humility.
That small change in phrasing makes a big difference in how it's received.
Huge difference. And don't forget delivery. A monotone can kill even the best argument.
Right. Need some life in it.
You need to vary your intonation, stress keywords, like emphasizing crucial or fundamental. It keeps listeners engaged, highlights what's important.
Makes sense. Brings the language alive.
Precisely. And here's a practical tip for you listening. Record yourself. Try summarizing a short journal article, maybe in a minute.
Ooh, tough.
It is. But listen back. Did you sound like you really got the author's nuances? Or more like you were just reading facts from a textbook? It's very revealing.
That's a great self-assessment tool. Okay, let's put some of this together. Imagine an IELTS speaking part 3 question. Some argue space exploration is a waste of resources. What's your view? How could a C1 response sound?
Okay, aiming for C1 might sound something like this. That's a genuinely contentious issue, acknowledging complexity.
Okay.
While the significant financial outlay is undeniable, acknowledging the opposing point, using stronger vocabulary like outlay, the potential for technological spin-offs, consider, for example, MRI technology derived from NASA research, can be argued to justify the expenditure. Offering a counter-argument with an example using hedging like can be argued,
Nice example.
provided that budgets are transparent and accountable. Adding a condition or qualification at the end.
That really ticks all the boxes, doesn't it? Acknowledges, qualifies, gives evidence, adds nuance.
That's the idea. It shows a well-rounded, considered perspective.
So now for you, our listener, a question to think about. Is social media eroding democracy? How would you tackle that using these C1 strategies? Think about the structure, the hedging, the word choices you'd make.
It's a great chance to mentally practice applying these concepts. How would you articulate your view in that sophisticated way?
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive on C1 speaking,
Hmm.
here's a little challenge for you.
Go on.
Try to find a chance for a real discussion, or maybe just record yourself for 2 minutes on a tricky question like, can capitalism solve climate change?
Ooh, another big one.
Yeah, focus on using that four-part structure we talked about and consciously try to weave in some hedging. See how it feels.
And to help with that, we've actually put together a cheat sheet. Lots of useful C1 phrases for debates and discussions.
Oh, brilliant. Where can people find that?
There's a link right in the description for this deep dive. Easy to download.
Perfect. Also, we're curious about your thoughts on something else. Pronunciation myths.
Ah,
Head over to our social media search for the Deep Dive Podcast. We'll have a poll running. We'd love to hear what you think.
definitely keen to see those results. And looking ahead, our next exploration takes us into C1 reading.
Ooh, important skill.
Very. We'll be looking at how to dissect those dense academic articles efficiently. The goal is reading with real confidence and deep understanding, not just fluency.
Sounds fascinating. Well, until then, remember to speak with confidence.
And with nuance.
Thanks for exploring C1 speaking with us today.